Going on, guys? I'm here with my friend, one of my best friends, Piper the dog. Piper's been with me for quite a while, and she's got me through some really hard times. And the reason why I have her on with me right now is because I got to interview. Oh, you shoot, baby. Yeah. I got to interview Craig Grossi. Craig is the author of a really awesome book called Craig and Fred, a Marine stray dog and how they rescued each other. And you can see Craig there, and you can see Fred there. Um, and the book is not just about a guy and his dog. The story kind of takes a lot of turns. And basically, Craig was a Marine who served in Afghanistan. And he was served in one of the most dangerous areas in Afghanistan. And amidst all the chaos and all the craziness that was going on, he found this floppy little dog. And that dog and him formed a bond. And the dog became really important to him, really important to his unit. Um, but the book goes into a lot more than that. It goes into Craig's story, and it follows his life path for a little bit, before the Marine Corps, and then during the Marine Corps, and then after the Marine Corps. And Fred, the dog, helped Craig out a lot. He helped him through a lot of hard times during his transition, helped him out, of course, through a lot of hard times during his deployment to Afghanistan. And the book also talks about the immense kind of stress that Craig felt in trying to get Fred out of Afghanistan and home to the United States. And it's got so many lessons. And I think the biggest lesson from the book is this: there's a lot of evil and disgusting ugliness in this world, but there's also beauty. There's also awesome dogs. There's also amazing people. And for all the bad times that you're going to face in this life, you can also find good times. You just got to be patient, and you've got to be persistent, and you got to have your eyes open, and you've got to be open to whatever that experience brings. And I think you guys are going to love this interview. You're going to love Craig. You're definitely going to love Fred. Um, Before we get into it, I just got to give you a note from our sponsors, F-Bomb Nutrition. F-Bomb makes these amazing portable packets of fat. And I'm always talking about the ketogenic diet. I'm talking about paleo, in that I use fat for fuel. But if you want to do this, sometimes it's hard to find awesome sources of fats. And they make packets of avocado oil. They make packets of olive oil, coconut oil, MCT oil. And those are awesome for some quick fuel. But I'm a big fan of their fuel packets. And this one here is coconut oil and macadamia nut butter. And it's a blend, and it tastes amazing. It tastes like a crushed up macadamia nut cookie in a packet. It's a little paste, and it doesn't have any sugar in it. And I stick it in my shakes. Sometimes I just eat it right out of the packet. And for those of you who are on the go, this is a really great solution. And you can get 20% off by going to www.droppinfbomb.com. Use the code WarriorSoul at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your first order. And with that, let's get into this interview with Craig Grossi and Fred the Afghan, the authors of Craig and Fred, a Marine, a stray dog, and how they rescued each other. Like I said, you're going to love this interview. You're going to love Craig, and you're definitely going to love Fred. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
cool.
Piper. Yeah. He's like, what? I was sleeping. What?
That's cool,
Yeah.
man. That's cool.
Yeah, dude. He's a funny guy, man. He loves hotels. He's all about the pillows and
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Warrior Soul podcast. This is Chris Albert, and today I have to say that, I've had a lot of guests on this podcast.
interviewed a lot of authors, a lot of celebrities, a lot of different types of personalities. I've been more excited about this podcast than I have about any other. I'm joined today by Craig Grossi, a fellow U.S. Marine, and author of the book Craig and Fred. And Fred's there too. He's
Yeah.
he's sleeping on the ground over there. But if you haven't heard of this book details Craig's journey through Afghanistan, his journey before joining the Marine Corps, and his journey after the Marine Corps, and how he connected with a little dog in the middle of nowhere in the Sinjar province in Afghanistan. And they basically found each other, saved each other, and they're still together today, traveling and having a ball. And Craig, I want to welcome you to the podcast. I want to thank
Oh
you for
man.
coming on.
Yeah.
I know you're on your book tour right now there with Fred, and
Yeah.
you guys are super busy, but how's everything going?
Oh, it's going great, man. It's the absolute best kind of busy we could ever have asked for. You know, we're traveling now, and we've kind of been traveling off and on for the last couple of years. But it was always kind of on our own dime and on our own initiative, and now we have just a very intact schedule with really great events, and we have the book, and we have this thing that we can hand to people and say, take this and take your own, take your own lessons from it and stuff like that. And that's just really exciting, and it means a lot to me.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out this book, it's right here. It's called Craig and Fred, and you can see what Fred looks like there. He's sitting on Craig's shoulders. And if you can, I just kind of describe your first meeting with Fred, because I want people to really read this book, because I think that this book could really benefit so many people if they go through it and actually read it from start to finish. But if you can, just describe your first meeting with Fred and why you fell in love with him.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, there were no established FOBs or any kind of combat outposts up in the northern Sangin Valley near the Green Zone, and I was attached to recon, and we went in and we set up kind of overnight. We set up a really hasty position in this compound, and then just essentially just filled sandbags and dug a couple murder holes was the best we could do, and all the analysts and everybody was telling us before we punched into Sangin that we were going to be in the fight of our lives, and that the Taliban there were just a totally different enemy, and they were right. I mean, from day one, they came at us with much more coordinated efforts and just bigger everything in terms of their caliber of weapons, and the numbers that we saw were unlike anywhere else. And so it was probably like a good week of just kind of standing, our ground and fighting them off every day. And it was in between engagements and in between stuff like, like mortar attacks and stuff like that I would spot Fred kind of bebopping around this compound that we had taken, we had kind of commandeered. And he was all by himself, which to me was one of the first things I noticed about him, because most of the times the dogs, they only really came out at night, and they were, just usually in little packs. And he was during the day. He was always out during the day, and he kind of seemed like he carried himself, like, despite his runty size, he was really confident, and I kind of noticed that pretty quickly too. And so it was, it was probably after things kind of died down a little bit. I maybe like day 6 or 7, I finally, I spotted him. He had a little nest, like this little clump of bushes he was in. And just that first moment I walked over to him, as I got kind of close to him, I realized this might not be a good idea. I mean, he was covered in bugs, and he was hot and hungry, and he was really dirty. But as I got a couple feet from him, I noticed he was doing something, and to this day, it has impacted me, and it's a big part of his story. And I'll kind of leave the first encounter story at that. But he was wagging his tail essentially, and that to me it was such a simple thing for him to do, but to me it said everything. And to me, it was this dog has absolutely nothing to wag his tail about, and he's and no reason to trust a person at all, but here he is. He's he's doing it, and he wants to reach out, and he's, to me, it's a, I call it stubborn positivity now. That's Fred, and so that was our first encounter, and it was just one little thing after another that kind of just really made him grow in my heart and the rest of the guys I was with.
And if you if you guys get a chance to go check out Craig and Fred's Instagram, Fred the Afghan, if you see what this dog looks like, I mean,
Yeah.
it looks like a almost like a lab,
Yeah.
on legs that are about like half as long as they should be. And
Right.
so I imagine that was like a really interesting sight, because
Yeah.
I served in Iraq, but I from what you wrote, I saw that most of the dogs there were like, looked like wolves mixed with hyenas
Yeah.
or something like that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
this little guy comes up and he's friendly.
Yeah, man. It was he has big dog features. His head, his neck, and his body, and he has a really big chest.
Mhm.
And he kind of knows that. Like, he walks around with his chest out all the time. But yeah, he just got dipped his hand. Like, it wasn't slowing down at all. And my dad says he's two dogs long and one dog tall. That's kind of the little phrase that we say about him. But yeah, I mean, he was different, and much more approachable. I mean, there was a rule for us, like, don't, and for all troops, like, don't approach stray animals. And I didn't think it was a bad rule, and I didn't have a problem following it until I saw Freddie.
And going off of that rule, dogs that came in contact with U.S. service members in Afghanistan were largely euthanized, or they were under the threat of euthanization.
Right.
That's a theme throughout your book, kind of going through this struggle. Like, I'm here, I'm serving in a war, and we have a mission on our minds, but this dog is really important, not only to you, but to your unit. And he became really important to your unit. How did that come about? I mean, it seems like he almost drew you guys together and almost kind of made you guys focus on him as kind of like a family member.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was everything from just like coming up to a guy like that in his bug net at night and like cuddling with him, and just or when we started going out at night to really try to get in contact with some of the villagers who were caught in the middle. Fred came on patrols with us, and this is recon. Like, they like to be quiet, and they value that. And if you can't keep up, you can't come. And Fred kept up, and Fred kept his mouth shut. And even when, in instances when you would expect a dog to bark, and when a pack of dogs would kind of be following us and barking at us, Fred never barked back, and Fred never made a sound. And that kind of, whoa, he's with us, and lots of everything from big stuff like that to just little stuff like just him being himself, and him clearly kind of just standing out in contrast to the environment that he was in. It was almost like he wandered off of someone's front porch and got lost, like really, really lost. I was asking villagers kind of all the time, like, whose dog is this? Whose dog is this? Because he was so chill and so great. And I was told repeatedly, like, no, he's not no one's dog. He's a stray. And no, they would laugh, like the Afghans would laugh at us that we loved him so much, because to them, he wasn't of any value, if he wasn't big.
Yeah, they have a very different mentality toward dogs and animals than we do, and it seems like that was another kind of theme there, where you really wanted to get him out of there because you didn't know what his life was going to be like afterwards or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was like he was waiting for us, because and not to downplay anybody that's ever got a dog back from overseas, but the stories I've heard and the friends that I've known that have pulled it off, it was, they were on a fob or they were on a base, and like that for most of their deployment, and they had kind of the resources and the time to kind of dedicate to that dog, and the dog itself was brought up kind of around that environment of that base, and was, hand fed and kind of, stuff like that. With Fred, we showed up on him. He had existed in the wilds of Sangin for probably, I estimate, around 8 to 9 months of his life. So he was still a puppy, but he was around long enough to have kind of become, mean, like all the other dogs we saw. And so I think we all felt, responsible for him, because it was the coincidence was just too incredible, that the compound we happened to take, for that operation, for this little dog happened to be in it, and it was, he really just kind of consistently demonstrated his, his awesomeness and his value. And, and anybody that has a dog, you have a dog, like when you're petting your dog, when you're hanging out with your dog, that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that matters. And so, it doesn't matter if you're in your bedroom or if you're on a battlefield in Afghanistan, and Fred, if nothing else, he gave us that in brief moments, in the field, when you were giving Fred a little scratch, or you're playing tug of war with him, or whatever, that's what you were doing. And it was like your blood pressure dropped, and it was so awesome. And so, yeah, we all just wanted to see him get out of there.
That's so amazing. And there's a few scenes from the book that really kind of just get at me. And
yeah,
I told you before this, I had to have my girlfriend actually read the book before I did, because I still have flashbacks from watching Old Yeller when I was a kid.
Yeah, dude, right. Yeah.
And the one scene that and again, I don't want to ruin the book for people, but getting onto the helicopter, your heart had to be in your throat at that moment when you knew that you finally were going to bring him on, and that you were going to take this upon yourself. What was going through your head?
Man, everything from what are you thinking? This is insane. To I really just hope I can get him in the bag and just get him on the back of the helicopter. But for me, it was really, I wanted it to be exhaustingly clear that it was what I was supposed to do. I wanted it to really, I put it on Fred. I wanted it to be his call and his choice to take this risk, because beyond getting him out of the field and back to Leatherneck, I didn't really have much, if any, of a plan from there. And all I knew was we were only going to go back to Leatherneck for 2 weeks to rest up, and then we were heading right back out into Sangin. And so I was like, man, I didn't know what I was going to do from there or how I was going to get him home. But I told Fred, I kind of pulled Fred aside before the helicopters came to pick us up, and I was like, look, man, if you're not scared off by all the noise and craziness that happens when a helicopter comes down, and you follow us, I'll do my part, and if you ignore all that stuff. And and I honestly thought he would be halfway to Pakistan by the time the thing hit the ground, because how could you expect a stray dog to follow you to the back of a helicopter? They have to train the working dogs to do stuff like that, and but yeah, that scene, when I read it, it still gets me. My anxiety goes through my throat, and I almost look at myself like, what were you thinking, man? That was insane, and so yeah, I don't want to give too much away, because that is a really powerful scene, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you brought it up. But that was a big moment in just in my life in general. Now looking back at it. Yeah.
That's like I said, it's absolutely amazing. And you guys definitely got to get this book. I mean, I've read a lot of books in my life. This one has had a major impact on me. And I think it's a major impact on any person who reads it, but let alone veterans. I mean, veterans in general need to hear this message and need to learn the lessons from this. And I think one of the biggest lessons from it is that if you have positivity in your heart and you want something to happen, you can make it happen. You can bring
Yeah.
it together. And I think that's a lesson both from Fred and from yourself.
Thanks.
Equally, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah. That means a lot. I mean, cause I learned from Fred, you know, and for me, getting out and transitioning was rough, you know, and I almost didn't really realize I was going through a rough spot at the time because I had Fred. And because whenever I felt frustrated or down, you know, like I would just look at him, you know, and to me, he was a reminder of something awesome that I did. He was, you know, just very tangible, you know, and it was like we had this bond and we had done this thing together, and when it could have gone wrong 100 different ways, you know, we made it happen, you know, together, so he kind of just kept me positive, you know, and it kept me driven to just never really, I guess, never really compromising in terms of my happiness and my contentness. Yeah.
and you know, there's a few different storylines in the book, and
Mhm.
a big part of the book is, I believe it's your friend Josh. Forgive me if I get the
Yeah.
name wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But,
Josh. Mhm.
you know, and part of the book is you're traveling around the country with him and
Yeah.
Fred, and Josh is an amputee. He served in the U.S. Army, and one of the things that I got from it is when you're encountering people look at Josh and they see, okay, wounded veteran, and
Yeah.
you have that, and then, you know, you coming back, you know, I know you suffered a traumatic brain injury, but
Mhm.
you know, people don't see that. Uh,
Right.
they don't
Right.
see that at all, and it's hard to strike up a conversation. It's hard to talk about it.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about how Fred helped you with that? You know, having him here in the States and having him on that trip.
Yeah, I mean, it's Fred's story, you know, and it became, you know, just living in DC and going to the different dog parks and with Fred, and just striking up conversations with people about Fred, because everywhere he goes, people are like, "What kind of dog is that?" And he's just so looking, you know, and he hears corgi all the time, and I think that gets on both of our nerves because he's not a corgi, but
Corky.
it kind of, you know, it was like another one of the ways that he really impacted my life was because it reconnected me with my love of storytelling, and it's one of the first things I think I ever realized I was good at as a kid, was
Mhm.
just like was like sitting around the dinner table with my family or going to a sleepover with my friends when I was like a little kid and just like telling a story, you know, and so when I would go to the dog park and somebody would ask about Fred, they had no idea what they're signing up for, but I would just kick off on this crazy story about how I found him and how I got him home, and the next thing I knew, you know, I was talking to total strangers about, you know, not just about Fred, but about Afghanistan and about my experiences there and about my friends that I lost, you know, and the friends that I served with that were just incredible guys. And, you know, so I think it was never my plan, you know, it was never like my intention to go to the dog park and talk to people about that stuff. You know, I just wanted to see Fred chase a squirrel. But next thing I knew, you know, it was just really another way that, you know, it's proof to me that, you know, his presence in my life isn't an accident, you know, and this is a story that we were supposed to share. So it's really just exciting to do it on a big level like this with the book.
Um, at what point did you decide that you were gonna write a book? Like what came upon you that said, I got to sit down, I got to get this out?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, I think the biggest obstacle for me was convincing myself that my story was worth it. That like, because you know, it's just I think a natural thing that veterans have is, you know, it's just like you're not special, you know, and like, yeah, like there's 100 dogs people brought home from Afghanistan or Iraq. Like, what's so great about Fred's story, you know, and you know, and just kind of getting over like that idea that I'm not good, like that it's not good enough, or that I'm not worthy of this, you know, opportunity. And that, I think that was probably the biggest thing I had to overcome. And then once I kind of made peace with that, I started to write. And the more I wrote, like I took Fred on a camping trip, and we did about 4 nights just like on the Appalachian Trail. And I brought a legal pad, and I would just sit by a little fire at night and just write. And the more I wrote, man, the better it felt. And it was like, at first I was like, whoa, like it just feels good. I don't know if the writing is any good. I don't know if anybody's going to give a crap about this, but it just felt great. I filled that legal pad in just a week. And then I ended up taking a writing course, just a weekend kind of crash course on not creative writing, but just on writing with the Veterans Writing Project, which is an awesome nonprofit based out of DC, but they do stuff all over the country. And it's all free to vets, and they just give you as much as they can, kind of a fire hose situation in terms of just what it's like to write and why it's important for us to write. And after that weekend, I was like, whoa, like this, I really want to do this. And then I went on the road trip with Josh that summer, and that to me was a test. And it was almost like kind of like asking Fred to follow me to the helicopter, and if I can live this story and like tell it from everywhere from Chattanooga, Tennessee to Bend, Oregon and back, and it feels good and it feels right, then when I graduate the following year from Georgetown, like then this is what I want to do. And every mile we put on that road that summer, and every time I told the story, it was just proof to me, and it just became stronger in my heart that that this was what I wanted to do. And it was again kind of, I'm realizing as I'm telling you, like it was kind of like once Fred followed me to the helicopter, I was like, okay, like how do I get him home now? And then it was same thing, like once I figured out inside myself that I wanted to share this story, then I had to figure out how the heck I was going to pull it off, and how I was going to get a book deal. And and it was, to me, it didn't have to be this big grand scale, and I could have never imagined that HarperCollins would pick us up and that we would have this incredible, all these resources that we have now. To me, it was just about getting it out, and I was ready to self-publish. I was ready to do whatever it took to just have it and be able to say to people, read my book, and read about my friends. And so it wasn't an easy journey. And this time last year, I was really lost and really frustrated. I was working retail. I took a job that let me bring Fred into the store because I felt like that was, I wasn't going to sell people socks or ties. Like I was selling people Fred, and you never knew who was going to walk through the door. So, that was where I was. And it was just a matter of just kind of staying persistent with it and really just never letting go of the idea.
That's that's so interesting to me because one, the writing was like therapy to you and
Yeah.
the way of getting things out, which in a lot of ways that's kind of why I do podcasts and how I started doing podcasts and YouTube and things like that. But
Right. Yeah.
What's even more interesting to me here is kind of this process you have where you're setting up these little incremental challenges for yourself. And if you meet the test, then you're going to go full on in with it and you're going to go all the way. And I think that's a really cool way of going about things that a lot of people from home could learn from, because you're setting up these tests, and they're things that are doable, but they require effort. They're a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of a stretch for you. And stretch yourself a little bit, then you grab hold onto it, and if it's a fit, you go for it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's because I think I've made enough mistakes and I've gone down the wrong path enough to know when I'm on it. And so setting up those tests, if it doesn't work out, or even if it does and it still doesn't really feel right, you can you haven't overcommitted yourself to something. And I guess it was kind of an unconscious thing, but it is a method. And a big crossroads was I graduated from school, and I got a job offer to go back into the Intel world, and I knew if I went back into this, specifically this job, that I would blink and I would be in my 60s. And it was just going to be that kind of environment because it was kind of the job I had always wanted. And I had my clearance had lapsed while I was back at school, and so I had an 8 to 9 month window for where they're saying you can't start for at least 9 months, 8 to 9 months. And I was like, okay, like I guess I got 8 to 9 months to get this book off the ground if it's gonna go anywhere, And that was when I really, put the hammer down on trying to just get the story out there, and and I knew because I knew just it was going to go one way or the other. I was going to go back to the government and go back into the intel world, or I was going to, just go down this book path and see which, how far it took me. So here we are.
And it's, yeah, the book path is uncomfortable. I mean, there by
Yeah.
no means were no certainties, and
Right.
even right now, your book's out, everything looks awesome, but there's still no certainties. But you look like you're having a freaking ball. I mean, you're
Yeah, right.
getting that life experience, and
Yeah.
you look so happy right now, and I think that's
Oh,
the
thanks,
point,
man.
right?
Yeah, it is. I feel as content as I did when I was hucking around Sangin with recon, with a notebook in my pocket and just talking to villagers all night. Like that to me was, my sweet spot in terms of just my Marine Corps career, and just what I joined to do in the first place. And it's been a long road since then to try and figure out exactly what the heck I'm supposed to do now after the Marines. And I mean, I got out in 2011, right when I got home. But yeah, this is the best I've felt since those days. And it really is just clear to me that, everybody we talk to, we're coming in their lives for a reason, and people are ready to hear this story. And it runs the gamut. I'm so proud to share this for my fellow veterans, and for anyone that's transitioning, or not. But also just for the random civilian, or for any person that just needs a story about about life, and about just finding your path, because I've been looking for a long time, but I'm proud to say that at least for now, this is right where I'm supposed to be. So yeah, it feels good.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing to mention there too is, like you said, you had jobs waiting for you in the intelligence world.
Yeah.
You graduated from what for all intents and purposes is one of the most elite institutions in the country.
Yeah.
Down
I know.
University.
Crazy.
And you lived a great life, and it's not like you were one of these kids who grew up in New England, who went to a prep school or anything like that. You came out of the Marine Corps, you served as an enlisted person, went into college,
Yeah.
and then came out. But what's cool about that is that all these things that these kids who did grow up in the prep schools, who did go to the Ivy League colleges, who had what you would call like the standard grooming for what you see in government in Washington D.C., they
Right.
would sit there in that job and they'd wait, and you're out here living. And I think that's the cool.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's awesome. And yeah, and that it was just really, I think, just about not settling, and really holding out, and understanding, that I didn't have to settle, and I could wait for the and not wait, but really work for this, and for the opportunities, and when they weren't there, just make them for yourself, yeah. I feel very lucky, but I also know that that it took a lot of persistence, and just, but I have been just, the people in my life are incredible. Everybody that's been involved in the book, everybody at HarperCollins, and has really matched my enthusiasm, and that's all I could ask for. And yeah, so yeah, it's great, man. I'm really excited to see where it takes us from here.
And it's about understanding what you want as a person, I think, too.
Yeah.
Rather than doing what everybody else wants, or wants you to do.
Right.
I just reading from the book, I know you were in some situations where you almost got yourself into a life situation that you completely didn't want to be in, and you recognize that. How do you how can, for the guys at home, how can you recognize one of these situations where, you feel like, or you're about to step into a situation where you're not going to be happy, but everybody around you is pressuring you to do it?
Yeah, it's tough. It's so tough, and I think what it really boils down to is knowing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing, looking back to a couple of years, and thinking about who you were, at a certain, like, think about a point in your life when you were really happy and you were really content, and why you were that way. And then thinking about the current path that you're on, and what it would look like if you made that decision, or if you made that life choice. Would it lead to that? Would it lead you in that direction? And would you be able to recreate those circumstances? Not specifically, but just that kind of that feeling, that you're in the right place. And if the answer is no, you need to ask some more hard questions. And that's ultimately what it's about to me. It is really just maintaining your own personal integrity, and not wavering from that set of standards, and not doing it for anyone, and because the pressures are out there, and it's and they're not going to go anywhere. It's once you avoid one, or once you deal with one, there's going to be more. But the less that you compromise your own values and your own sense of purpose, the easier it is to not fall into those traps, and to really know yourself and be able to stick to that. Yeah, and it's a hard thing to give specific advice about, but I hope that I hope that the book will help, and just see from because that was tough to kind of write about, because really thinking about those moments, not so much that they were hard to talk about, but it was just like almost, I didn't want it to seem like I was avoiding responsibility or avoiding, anything like, that I just didn't want to do. It wasn't like that.
Yeah, I think that in some ways responsibility is, I mean, it's based on the person, and yeah, when you sign up for a commitment, and you have a responsibility toward that commitment, like the commitment we had in the Marine Corps. But I also see responsibility in your life in another way. By taking on Fred, you took on responsibility. You took on responsibility for his life, for his welfare, for his comfort, and things like that. And at the same time, if you sign up for something that is not in your will, and it is not something you want to do, that's kind of, letting go of responsibility for yourself, just so you can get some sort of comfort, so people don't look at you like you're funny and things like that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's an uncomfortable decision to buck. Your family's going to look at you differently. Your friends are going to like, what, but it passes. And people might give you a cockeyed look, or question what you're doing, or what you aren't doing, but in a week, maybe less, they'll get it, and they'll see that you're happy, and that you're content, and if they're supposed to be in your life, then that's all they want for you. And it's just a matter of just maintaining, being able to look inward and really, really determine what you want for yourself, and not compromising it for anybody.
Now, with the book, I know you guys you're on your tour right now. How long is this tour? Where are you guys headed? What areas are you going to?
Yeah, we were in Rhode Island last night in a town called Westerly. It was a really great event. Lots of people. They sold all the books at the store, which was really cool. And
Awesome.
yeah, and then we have tomorrow we have an event in Cheshire at the public library in Cheshire, Connecticut. Really excited about that. It seems like that I usually talk for about 20 minutes and just kind of talk about the book and the journey and Fred. Everybody just wants to know about Fred. I'm used to that. People are excited they're excited to see me because Fred's at the other end of the leash, and I could be invisible, and then I usually just take a lot of questions. People always want to know about Fred's, habits and, different stuff. And then I'll do just, book signing and stuff like that. And then on Sunday, we're going to be in Middletown, Connecticut. And then we're just headed up to New Hampshire, and then kind of all the way down the East Coast. And if people want to know, just when we're coming, we're going to be in Delaware, and in Rehoboth Beach, and next week, and then we'll be in DC for Veterans Day weekend. And but if they can just go to fredtheafghan.com and go to our events tab, and you can check out all the different events. I'm really, really excited about all of them, but we have one at a place that I write about in the book a lot called the Pug. and it's just a great little local bar in DC that I hung out a lot when we lived there. And we're going to do a fundraiser for the Veterans Writing Project and a book signing and sale right there at the Pug. So it'd be cool for people to come if they've never been. Come check out the bar that I write about. That's it's in the book, and there's lots of great people that hang out there and really great characters, and it's in a cool neighborhood too. And then they can get a copy of the book and have a Stroh's, which is the beer that I always drink when I'm there.
When I lived in DC, what did I drink? I used to drink Yingling, a lot of Yingling.
Yeah. It's big there. Yeah.
I drink a lot of whiskey too, but I had to
yeah, right. That's great.
But so you've got this book, you've got the book tour going on. Have you thought about what your next step is for you and Fred? What are you guys going to try next?
Yeah, I mean, I really, I'm always thinking about that. I'm always thinking about the next step. And I think, I definitely want to keep writing. And my gut right now is kind of telling me like I could write a book about writing a book. Mm-hmm. and just in general, like what my path was like, almost like expand off of the last chapter of Craig and Fred and really get into, what those moments were like when I was really kind of put to the test in terms of my, my commitment to the story and to sharing everything about it. And because there were moments that I was like withdrawn on my bank accounts, and I didn't know where, like what, how I was going to get, food for Fred, and just like things were just really, really dark there for a little while. But I really just maintained that, that positivity that was supposed to be, what the story was all about, and just tried to live according to my own story. And so I think that could be a fun thing to write and a valuable thing to share with people. And also we just want to keep traveling, and I think we're kind of tentatively putting together some ideas for the West Coast. We have a ton of friends. We'd love to come see you. And
dude, you got to come out here. I will cook you the best Italian meal
nice.
The best.
That's great, man.
It'll be the best Italian meal you'll get on the West Coast. I'll promise you.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, we'll take it, man. Yeah, so we want to, maybe in spring, summer, like get out there and see all of our friends and do more events out there. Fred loves to travel, and we all, my girlfriend and Fred's little sister Ruby, we're a little unit now. So, we want to keep it going, and I want to share more just kind of about, our travels, and, I'd love to just explore different towns and dog-friendly establishments, and, almost maybe make like a YouTube channel about like dog travel and stuff like that. I think that would be really fun to do just with Fred. And so yeah, we'll see. We got lots of ideas. It's just kind of a matter of putting them to the test and see how they feel.
Well, I definitely think you'll find success with any of those ideas. You guys have a lot of charisma. Both of you have a lot of charisma. So
yeah.
Don't sell yourself short there, man. People want to hear what you got to say too. It's not just
right.
Yeah,
I know. It's I think I've always been kind of hard to compliment. I'm really, the hardest part for me about the book in general was just writing about myself, and when I sent a very early version of it to my girlfriend, actually before we were dating, I just wanted her to read it because she was one of the only people I knew that was creative, and she wrote me back and said it's great, but like we want to know more about you, and that was the last thing I wanted to hear, because it's always harder to write about yourself. But she was right, and that was I think was where the real therapy came into it for me, is really just when you put it on a screen or when you put it on paper, it becomes real, and you can really just continue to kind of flush your own thoughts out. So
can I ask you a little bit about your writing process? Because
of course,
talking about that, is there a particular ritual you have when you're writing? Is there a particular time of day you like to write at? Is there a particular thing you have to do before you get into it?
Yeah, I find like it was just important for me to, at some points it would be like I'd sit down and I'd write for 5 minutes and never use whatever that was again, or maybe I would, or it was almost just valuable to get the ball rolling on an idea. And sometimes I would sit down and write. And the next thing I know, my legs would be asleep. And I would have been writing, and the sun was going down. I've been writing like for 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so I think ultimately for me, it was, I didn't, I think I would have been turned off if I had felt like I needed to have like a serious regiment.
Mhm.
It was to me, it was just about writing and just about doing it when it felt like I needed to, or like I should, or like I had something in my head that had to come out. And once I started to do that and to address that kind of that inclination, it felt all the more natural to just like and I carry around just like something like this, just like a little red notebook, you know, and if you know, if I'm just around the house or out, you know, and I just sit down and just write, like a memory would come in my head, because a lot of the book, you know, it happened a while ago, and so things would kind of hit me here and there, and I would just be like, oh, remember that time that Justin did that, you know, and that would be enough for me when I went back to my computer to sit down and kind of extrapolate and pull that and memory apart and see if there was anything kind of valuable there in terms of the story. And so I think, you know, I think it's important to write just in general, and for people, it's like working out, like what works for one person's body type and one person's, you know, kind of lifestyle might not work for somebody else. So I think especially for veterans, that we have stories. It doesn't matter if you didn't go to Afghanistan or Iraq, or you know, you didn't deploy at all. Like if you're turning wrenches on a helicopter in Pendleton, like you got stories, and they're awesome and they're unique, and you know, people want to hear them. And I think, you know, just sitting down and writing is just important, and everybody's going to do it differently. And so it's just kind of popping that bubble, you know, that first time, and then once you start, it's going to be something that you kind of want to do and you gravitate towards.
Did you ever read the book The War of Art by Pressfield?
No.
You got to check that out. He also he wrote a lot of war books. He was a Marine as well, but he wrote this book.
Okay.
I don't have it near my desk right now, but it's called The War of Art, and he talks about resistance and how writers go through resistance, and how, because he was kind of the same, a very similar story to yours, where for a lot, I think up until about the age of 45, he was living out of a van, and he was typing in a typewriter out of the back of his van. And then all of a sudden his writing kind of took off. And he talks about the mental resistance that people go through. You got to check that book out, man.
Definitely.
Make sure. We'll talk about that. But that's cool, man. I like that you have that process. Do you find that your skills from the Intel world helped you in remembering things?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I was, you know, I wasn't a shooter. You know, I wasn't a recon guy. It was my job to really like have my eyes open, especially on the battlefield, and I think that habit, definitely carried into my time after, you know, and my experiences after on the road with Josh and Fred, and really just like that method of when I saw something, or when I talked to a villager, or when I, you know, observed a Taliban tactic, or, you know, something like that, I wrote it down. And so, yeah, I think that kind of carried over, but it's nothing that people without that background can't do, because essentially it's just observing and reporting, you know, observing and remembering, you know, and just, I think the biggest hurdle to kind of get over is, you know, is that your experiences are worth sharing and worth writing down, and also, like, you can be a writer and suck at spelling and grammar. Like it doesn't. I think people need to hear that, man, because that's why you have editors, you know. You know, and so like you shouldn't feel self-conscious about, you know, like, oh, did I spell that right, or, you know, what's a semicolon? You know, like it doesn't. Nobody cares. You know, like it's about what's on the page. It's about the story. So, you know, all that stuff is just details, and you know, you can get hash it out later. So. Yeah.
Worry about the accomplishing the mission, getting it out, and then worry about crossing your T's and dotting your I's later on.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's a big thing. Don't be a perfectionist.
No.
Cool, man. I guess this is kind of the last question I have with this new phase in your life, right?
Mm,
You've gone through these different phases, from being in the Marine Corps the first time, people find out if they read the book that you were in the Marine Corps twice, kind of
yeah.
career first, and then another career, and then
Right.
into college and in your travels, and now as a noted author. um,
Mm,
how are you dealing with this latest phase in your life? Like, what are you learning from it?
mm.
What kinds of things is it opening your eyes to?
It's it's I'm really I'm really just taking it as slowly as I can because like I said earlier, like this time last year, I was working retail and like losing sleep at night over like what I was doing with my life.
Yeah.
And so it's proof to me of my own my own like kind of personal philosophy, and the idea that it's not what happens to you, it's how you react that matters, and stubborn positivity, all this stuff that I really had, like, through my studies at Georgetown and through my experience with Fred, have really clung to, but I really had to, and it wasn't like it wasn't an easy path to this. And so it really just I want to be grateful. I want to understand where I was last year, and how many people would love to have the opportunities that I do in terms of just the exposure to our story, and to writing and in general. And I really want to just be open to anything, to anybody at a bookstore, at a park, or at any of these events that wants to talk. Like, I'm gonna find the energy to talk, and to listen to, and really just explore anything that comes our way, because at this point, like, it's paying off, and I can really see it, and I wanna keep it going. I want I won't stop until people. I'm never gonna stop. I'm never gonna stop.
Don't ever stop.
I want everybody to know. I want everybody to know about Fred. I want everybody to know about Sean and Justin and just all the amazing people that have come into my life. And and I want to meet more amazing people. I want to come to California and hang out with you,
Absolutely.
and meet everybody in between. So yeah, that's, I think, the way I'm dealing with it is just honoring the experiences that I'm lucky to have, and grateful to just the world for giving me and Fred this voice.
And do you have any advice for those guys at home right now who might be stuck in that situation
Mm,
where they feel kind of trapped, and they feel
yeah,
like their life's not going anywhere, and maybe they have a lot of stress, maybe they got bills to pay, and maybe they're not covering them.
right.
What's your advice to somebody in that situation?
Yeah, it's okay to feel overwhelmed, and it's okay to acknowledge the fact that it maybe you feel like your life kind of sucks at the moment, and like, because it's not, this positive philosophy that I have, and the idea that's not what happens to you, it's how you react that matters. It's not an idea that you can just ignore the negative stuff and it'll go away. It's the opposite of that. You have to embrace it. You have to understand that you're not where you want to be, and really make peace with it. And the moment that you make peace with that, and really, like, it's not blaming anybody else, it's not even blaming yourself, it's just understanding that you're not where you want to be, then you can start to really look for doors and windows and cracks to crawl through, and find ways to get where you want to be. And I think that that it's just a matter of climbing out of that first hole, and then things are going to open up, and I think really patience is a big part of that, and just understanding that you can have the best plan in the world, but it's never going to go down the way you want it to, and you have to be patient and open to other opportunities that you probably never saw coming. So yeah, that's it's a tough place, and anybody that's having a tough time out there, it's a hard thing to, like, from me, sitting, on my book tour in a hotel room. Like I'm sure that, it's hard to hear from me. But trust me, like it was less than a year ago that I was right where you are. And I had like all the aspirations in the world, all the energy and just like, just life experience that I felt was valuable that was being squandered. Like I'm sitting there working retail, and like losing my mind, but it gets better. And it's just a matter of being persistent and patient. And those are just two really important things.
That's amazing advice. That's absolutely amazing advice. And I think that anybody who listens to your story, who reads your book, they're going to find out it's about a lot more than just a guy and his dog.
Yeah.
This is about life. This is about veterans. It's about all of us, because all of us face some of the situations that Craig is in. And I think that, if you take charge of some of those lessons and you'll learn them, things like taking on responsibility for something else in your life, taking on that little responsibility, what seems like a little responsibility to some people, like taking on a dog that you find, that can mean so much.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and being patient and those things. It's such an amazing bit of information we can get from you and your life and your story and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I mean, it's just, no matter how dark it feels, like there is something to be grateful for. There is something to smile about and to be positive about. And even if you're not lucky enough to have a dog in your life, or you don't have the resources or the time, like that's okay, but there are, there are, nice days. There are sunrises and sunsets and a cup of coffee, and just like a smile from a friend or a stranger, like just like open yourself up to seeing something good, and to being something good, and it's gonna come back at you. I promise.
Awesome. Is Fred awake? Does he want to say hi to the audience at all? Or
Oh yeah, he does. Oh, he's napping, but I'm gonna grab him. He's right here. Come here, buddy. Come here, man. Come here. Come here. Oh, I'm so sorry to wake you. Oh, here he comes. Here's the man.
Look at that guy.
There's Fred. Say hi, buddy. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, he's got sleepy breath.
Yeah. That is awesome.
They're gonna have to bring some extra vacuums into this hotel room because he's a shedder right now.
That is awesome. And how old is he right now? How do you have any idea of his age?
Yeah, I put him around like 7.5. He was about 8 months when I found him, because he had all his big dog teeth, and they say they get those around the 8-month mark. And thank you. And so that was October of 2010. So maybe he was around maybe 8 or 9 months old when I found him. And so I put him around 7.5. But when he's a puppy when he wants to be, man. He's still got he's not shy about letting me know when he wants to play or when he wants to go outside. When he sees a squirrel, like it's he's never caught one, but he's all about just being a puppy, especially now that we live up in Maine. Like he's so happy. Oh, I'm so sorry.
And for the dog owners out there, did you have to put him on like a special diet when you brought him in and kind of domesticated him or anything like that?
No, I mean, I try to just I'd make like my chicken for the week, and I'd make some for him, and mix it. I try to give him just as much real stuff as I could, because I figured out he could. I'm gonna put him down. It's so hot. Okay. He surprisingly has a really sensitive stomach.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's so used to like ingesting, but it's sensitive to processed stuff. Mm-hmm. Anything that's over processed in terms of food or treats or anything, his gut doesn't really know what to do with it. I mean, he could eat a dead, something off the road and it'd be fine. But if I give him something that's so I really had to pay attention to stuff like that. And but in terms of a special diet, I mean, my dad had him for the first 3 months, and I think he was just giving him straight up dog food, and
Mhm.
but he was spoiling him a lot too, and I think cooking for him and stuff. So um, yeah, it was more just about his behavior, and just some little hiccups in terms of just his his understanding that dogs, were his friends now. He didn't have to worry about anybody taking his toys or his food, and but we worked through it. It wasn't too hard.
Yeah, I had Dr. Dominic D'Agostino on here. He's an expert in ketosis, but he does a charity for dogs.
Oh, cool.
They take dogs who are suffering from cancer through the ketogenic diet, right?
Oh, yeah.
One of the things he was talking about was the fact that a lot of dog foods, they have grains in them, and a lot of dogs, their stomachs can't get used to the grains.
Right.
So he'll put these cancer infected dogs onto the ketogenic diet, and they'll
Yeah.
recover a lot.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Grains are, anything I give Fred, it doesn't have anything like that in it. Yeah, it's just like you have to scrutinize it just like you would, the food that you eat every day. Like, really just pay attention to, and then even if it's like, we switched Fred to like more of a seafood based food, because we thought it would just be like, he really liked it, but it made him itchy, and you could tell he was kind of uncomfortable, and we're like, whoa. So we switched back to the one we were using before, and it was even from the same brand. But and once we switched him back, he stopped kind of itching at his paws, and he stopped doing that. It was like, okay, so even if it is something that's good in terms of a product, and you just have to pay attention to how they're reacting to it.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, a dog coming from the desert of Afghanistan to the United States, and then it seems like, almost like that Eddie Murphy movie, Coming to America, or something.
Yeah.
Giant culture
Trading
shock.
places, and yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know. My dad, I talked about when he'd be outside like washing the car or something, and he had a long lead for Fred, and he would put Fred on the lead, and he would just kind of catch him every once in a while, just sitting there like sifting through like all the smells, and all the sounds, and of the neighborhood, and of life here, and just my dad would just kind of look at him and smile, like thinking like, what does he think about grass, and like the neighbor going by on their bike, and just all these funny little things. Because it was, for Fred, it was quick, like in terms of how long, or like the transition. Like, he went from the battlefield to the States, like in a matter of, just weeks. So yeah, it's crazy.
Well, somewhere out there, if there's a movie producer listening,
Oh, man.
this whole thing's got to be made into a movie. I think.
Yeah.
Blow anything out of the water.
Yeah.
It needs to go on the screen. And
Oh, man. Yeah, that would be incredible.
Yeah, and you got to get Craig and Fred to play themselves. Like, you can't.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Good luck finding another Fred. I don't know how many Freds are kicking around out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Craig, is there anything else you want to get out to the audience before we head out? If you guys haven't listened to the title of this book, Craig and Fred, a Marine, a stray dog, and how they rescued each other. We're going to have the links to the book up on the show notes, so that if you guys want it, you can get it. And why wouldn't you want this book? I mean, it's like I said, the best book I've read this year. But Craig, is there anything else you want to get out to the audience right now?
Yeah, no, man, I'm so grateful to be, on your podcast, and I'm a big fan of yours, and this whole thing that you're doing is just really important and really, really awesome, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And I guess if there's just one other thing about the book, there is a young reader edition too that we did, and it's a totally different book. It's for ages 8 and up, and it's a little watered down in terms of the cursing and some of the other content, but all the important stuff is there. It's a little more readable too, because it actually goes chapter by chapter, chronologically, whereas the adult, one chapter is Afghanistan, one chapter's back in the States. It kind of goes back and forth. But for parents that and parents of Marines and veterans that are reading the adult while their kid reads the young reader, and just how important, like guys and girls that haven't known how to bring up some of the circumstances that they faced over there, and the book is bringing them, to kind of like a conversational approach, through this story. And that means everything to me, because that's so important that we can talk to the ones we love about this stuff. And so, I just want to remind people that there is, if you have young kids, ages 8 and up, then you can read alongside with them. And that, to me, is really a really cool and unique thing about our story. So that's the only other kind of plug that we have. And then also just follow us on social media, Fred the Afghan. I have a lot of fun with Instagram and Facebook, and I love just taking pictures of Fred. And my photography skills aren't always great, but we try to have fun with it. So
I think it's a great Instagram that you got there. It's really interesting seeing a dog who's 3 feet long and 1.5 feet tall. Try to fetch a stick and all this stuff like that. He's actually really athletic.
Right. Yeah, he is.
Cool, man. Well, first off, Craig, I want to thank you for your service to this country. I want to also thank you for your story, because I really do think that this story is going to help a lot of our brothers and sisters out, and it's going to help a lot of people out. If you read this story, you can't come away with it without having a positive mindset. And yes, and that's one of the things you'll get from this. There is ugliness in this world. There is horrible things, horrible people, immense evil, but there's also beauty. There's also awesome dogs. There's also awesome people. And that's what you have to remember. You got to remember what you're fighting for and why right now, even after your service, you're still in the fight. So Craig, thank you so much for coming on. And
man, thank you.
Each and every one of you out there, I want you to get out there and I want you to live your best life.